This is Mac OS Ken.
A few things ahead of one more thing. Pros may lead the iPhone parade, and filling one with wondery. It's Tuesday, the 10th of November, 2020. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by MacPaw, makers of Clean My Mac X. Your Mac as good as new. Learn more about Clean My Mac X and download it for free at macpaw.app/macosken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macosken. Today is the thing. The one more thing thing. That's Apple's third and almost definitely final virtual product launch for the fall of 2020. Ahead of that, some final thoughts on what we might see and what it might mean. Apple Silicon Switch could lead to lower cost Mac lineups, analyst says. That's the headline of a piece from Apple Insider outlining a note from JP Morgan analyst Samik Chatterjee. Just about everybody, Chatman included, expects today's event to officially begin Apple's transition from Macs powered by Intel processors to processors bearing its own branding and design. According to the report, Chatterjee's firm expects the first Apple Silicon Mac to drive innovation, cut material costs, and possibly lead to a more diversely priced lineup of Mac devices. Currently, the Mac has an average selling price of $1,400. Chatterjee thinks bringing that down to about $1,000 would increase the addressable market for Mac by 10 to 15 million. That implies about a $15 billion opportunity for Apple, which will assure multi-year growth in a lackluster PC market, to his way of thinking. Macs aren't all we might see today. JP Morgan also sees the possibility of Apple's anticipated Tile competitor hitting the event. Chatterjee has a positive rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $150. Speed, power, and price tend to be the three things Apple watchers anticipate with the arrival of Apple Silicon. An easier time for developers is also expected by some. Quoting Chatterjee's note again, with the move to in-house capabilities, Apple is looking to regain control over the pace of the technology roadmap on the processor chips and create a common architecture across all Apple products, making it easier for developers to write and optimize applications for the product ecosystem. You know, assuming they want to, which may not be a safe assumption. While the similarities in architecture should make porting apps from iOS to the Mac easy, a piece from 9to5Mac says a number of big players aren't playing. At least not yet. Quoting the report, in theory, all the apps designed for iPhone and iPad will be available on the Mac App Store when accessed through an Apple Silicon Mac, but in reality there will be multiple apps missing. Although by default all iOS apps are available on the Mac App Store for Apple Silicon, the company is allowing developers to opt their iOS apps out of the new unified store. Notable in their absence, according to 9to5Mac, will be Google apps, including Google Maps, Google Drive, Gmail, and YouTube, Facebook apps, including Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp, Snapchat, Amazon Prime Video, Disney Plus, Candy Crush, Real Racing 3, and Among Us, among who knows how many. With the merging of the app architectures, 9to5Mac says users will find the following message on the App Store for compatible iOS apps: designed for iPad, not verified for macOS. If it is not compatible, the App Store will tell the user to download it on an iPhone or iPad. Does this signify trouble brewing between Apple and developers? Again, who knows? The way 9to5Mac sees it, some developers may have chosen to temporarily remove their apps from the Mac App Store until they ensure the apps work properly on the Apple Silicon Mac, while others haven't yet decided whether or not to remove their apps from the store. It doesn't seem like a huge deal, honestly. I mean, there's no Mac app for Facebook or Disney Plus or Instagram now, is there? Lack of availability on day one may not mean anything. A few months from now, then you might have a thing. You likely already know, but I'll remind you how to catch today's One More Thing event. Kicking off at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, it'll be available on Apple's events page at apple.com/events. The company will be streaming the event on YouTube. You can catch it through the Apple TV app, so on just about any streaming device or smart TV, as well as on Xbox. A piece from iMore says the Apple TV app went live for Xbox One consoles on Monday. That means the app is ready one day before the latest versions of the Xbox game system, and of course, one day before One More Thing. And finally, Apple will make the event available as a podcast later on Tuesday. Demand for Apple's latest communicators seems to be skewing towards the high end. Philip Elmer DeWitt's Apple 3.0 ran part of a note from Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani. According to his note, the iPhone Pro has now been shipping for almost a month, and lead time remains elevated across each country we track, with a notable expansion in U.S. delivery estimates. The earliest delivery date for the iPhone 12 Pro is now 21 days out, a large increase versus the 10-day timeline from the 20th of October. Same seems to go for iPhone 12 Pro Max. Not the same amount of lead time, but the fact that it is harder to get than the non-Pro iPhone 12 and iPhone 12 mini. Seeing similar demand for iPhone 12 Pro Max. Hey look, JP Morgan analyst Samik Chatterjee makes a second appearance today. Apple Insider has Chatman noting that initial demand for iPhone 12 Pro Max appears to be bigger than demand for iPhone 12 mini. As for why, bless his heart, Evercore's Daryanani doesn't know for certain why the Pro phones are harder to get, and he doesn't mind saying so. Quoting his note again, we would caveat that delivery times could be a reflection of strong demand or weak supply, though we suspect given staggered launches, this is an indication of strong demand. It does my heart good to see him say that. Daryanani has an outperform rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $135. More news in a moment, but first a word from MacPaw, makers of Clean My Mac X. Clean My Mac X is all-in-one cleaning and optimizing software for your Mac. It declutters your Mac and runs maintenance scripts to keep your Mac's performance at its peak. Clean My Mac X finds the clutter in every corner of Mac OS. It cleans unneeded files like outdated caches, broken downloads, logs, and more. You can remove tons of junk that's hiding in mail and photos, and even locate gigabytes of large hidden files. Ran Smart Scan yesterday myself. After a couple of weeks, there was nearly 4 gigabytes of stuff that it was able to remove. How'd it get there? Don't know, don't care. That's 4 gigabytes cleaned and freed up. Regular maintenance can keep your Mac spinning like a top. Take care of it with the push of a virtual button and Clean My Mac X. Learn more about Clean My Mac X and download it for free at macpaw.app/macOSken. That's MACPAW, macpaw.app/macOSken. That's macpaw.app/macOSken for Clean My Mac X. And a big thanks to MacPaw for sponsoring today's show. An anticipated Apple accessory has gotten the green light from the government. iDownload blog says Apple's MagSafe Duo charger has won approval from the FCC. That means the thing can finally go on sale. No word, though, on when the iPhone Apple Watch charger will finally go on sale. As of this writing, Apple's site simply says, coming soon. Save your nickels and dimes, though. When it finally is available, it'll set you back $129. And finally today, another big name is seeing The Shrink Next Door, or will be seen in The Shrink Next Door. Deadline says Kathryn Hahn has joined the series, which stars Paul Rudd and Will Ferrell. The show sounds like a reverse What About Bob on steroids. According to the report, The Shrink Next Door details the bizarre relationship between psychiatrist to the stars Dr. Isaac Ike Herskopf, played by Rudd, and his longtime patient, Marty Markowitz, played by Ferrell. Over the course of their relationship, the all-too-charming Ike slowly inserts himself into Marty's life, even moving into his Hamptons home and persuading Marty to name him president of the family business. The series explores how a seemingly normal doctor-patient dynamic morphs into an exploitative relationship filled with manipulation, power grabs, and dysfunction at its finest. Hahn plays Marty's younger sister, according to the report. Now, two interesting things about this project. First, it is said to be inspired by true events. And second, it's based on a podcast from Bloomberg Media and Wondery. Yes, the same Wondery that Apple's rumored to be eyeing for an acquisition, along with Sony and a couple of other unnamed companies. Now, if you still can't place Hahn, Deadline says she was most recently seen starring in the title role in HBO's Mrs. Fletcher. She'll next be seen in the Disney Plus series WandaVision. The scheduling issue I mentioned on yesterday's In a Few Minutes, yeah, it's gotten me again. None of that today, though the show will be back with reaction to today's One More Thing for the rest of this week. Speaking of that, I am going live today on my YouTube channel, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, talking about, well, whatever Apple talks about at the event. Watch it live or later at youtube.com/KenRay. You can also catch the audio podcast, macOS Ken Live, wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by MacPaw, makers of Clean My Mac X. Learn more about Clean My Mac X and download it for free at macpaw.app/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.